Hello, hello, hello. Happy Friday, everyone, and happy Black History Month. Yes, it is still February. While we're winding it down, we are still in the month of February, so happy Black History Month. I am Dr. Nika White. My pronouns are she, her, and I am the founder and lead principal consultant for NWC, Nika White Consulting. And I want to shout out the NWC team for working so tirelessly week after week after week for the past 5 years to bring this virtual experience to the broader community so that we can learn with and from each other, deepen our knowledge and understanding of all things diversity, equity, and inclusion, belonging, business, and leadership. And so I'm so glad you're here today. We do not take it lightly when people join us out of their busy schedules to be a part of our community. So I certainly want to welcome you. We do ensure an enriching conversation today, as we do every single week, and we are honored that you are spending this time with us. Please go to the chat. Let us know where you are joining the conversation from. And it is always a joy to us to see the many different geographies that are represented, not only here in the US, but also some of those members that will join us outside of the US. So share in the chat where you all are joining from today. I am happy and delighted to let you know that Intentional Conversations podcast, we're in our 5th year anniversary, and that is no small feat. We are excited about it. And as such, we are celebrating all year long this milestone year. And so thank you for being a part of this celebration. Just this past week, we actually had a Q1 convening where we had 4 panelists of past co-hosts on Intentional Conversations podcast brought together for an evening show. We referred to it as a reunion episode, and it was very, very rich. We're going to drop into the chat a link for the replay in case you did not get a chance to tune in live. You will definitely want to make sure that you take a look at that because it was fire. I also want to let you know that at NWC, we really do value disability inclusion, and as such, we have closed caption that has been enabled for anyone that could benefit from it. And so take advantage of that. If you are here as part of our Zoom community, then we welcome cameras to be on. We love smiling faces, but we also know that many of you are joining while you're multitasking, and whatever capacity in which you're here today, we are grateful. We also have a live LinkedIn audience that joins us in that capacity every single week. And so if you're joining there, we're going to bring you into our discussions. And so use the comment section to add your sentiments, your thoughts, your questions and comments. And we will make sure the team is watching that carefully. We'll make sure to bring it over into the chat here so that we all are well connected. Sit back and enjoy the show. And once again, welcome to Intentional Conversations podcast. Let the conversations begin. Conversations begin, and that's precisely what we're about to do. I hope you were dancing with me because I love that intro music. I dance every single time, and lucky for you, it's really short, so you don't have to see me dancing for a long time. But this is our 5th year, as I mentioned before, so we're celebrating all year long. Let's jump right in. I've already shared with you that even though February is about to end, let's make sure that we're continuing to keep Black history top of mind all year long. Black history is American history, so it should not be regulated to just one month of the year. For those of you who are new to our community, I am an author, and my 3rd book was released 2 years ago in January, and it's called Inclusion Uncomplicated, a Transformative Guide to Simplify DEI, and that is in partnership with Forbes Books. It is now available in paperback version, so you have so many ways to get the book: hard copy, paperback. You can also get it in Kindle. You can get the audiobook, and so many different ways for you to use this as a tool and add it to your library as you continue to grow and deepen your knowledge about all things DEIB. Now, I'm also a LinkedIn learning instructor. I have 4 courses that are out there. So I routinely like to remind our podcast community that this is available to you. So if you're looking for some ways to, again, just further your learning, then I invite you to take advantage of these 4 courses. And I would love to hear your feedback. So let me know what you think after you have engaged in this content. At NWC, we love finding ways to be able to provide value to our community. And so, one of those new offerings that we're super excited about is called Boundless. This is a woman's community of well being, empowerment, and leadership. And we are specifically right now recruiting for a cohort of women of color that can go through this experience as we create meaningful impact for each other. And we do it confidently in a safe space where we're protected and we are affirming and we're building our leadership. And so there's so many great things I can say about it. But what I'll tell you is that show up to one of the interest meetings that we have scheduled for next week, and you can learn all about it and even how you can sign up because it is launching in May. And I would love to see you there. My team is going to place the link into the chat, and I hope that you will take advantage of one of those 2 days. And let me just also mention while we're talking about Boundless that if you are a part of an organization and you want to bring Boundless to your organization to have a cohort formed within your organization, we can do that too. Information on our website will help you navigate all of the intricacies of that offering. Storytelling is something that we also are really focused on this year. I really believe in the power of storytelling. It helps to connect us and it helps to bridge the difference that can exist and create discourse. It also is a way for us to deepen our empathy and compassion. And so there's so much I can say about storytelling. And while personal narratives are not new to us, right? We share personal stories all the time. What I'm finding is that organizations have not been very intentional to leverage storytelling as part of their cultural framework in order to help create greater connectivity, innovation, collaboration, respect, and dignity, and all of the things that really centered at the core of the broad work of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But we want to help you do that. We have methodology with lots of different bells and whistles attached, and we would love to be able to talk you through it. So hit us up, let us know, and we will be happy to schedule that time. My team will place into the chat a link for you to learn more from our website. Now, before I get to introducing our guest co-host for today, which I'm super excited about, we always like to take a moment just to let you know what you can look forward to with the next week on the Intentional Conversations podcast in terms of our guest co-host. And we have Nima Khan that is joining us next week. So she's going to be kicking off the month of March. So I'm super excited. March is Women's History Month as well. And so join us, share it out with your friends, all of those in your network, but be here, be a part of the conversation, and we look forward to seeing you. Now, one of the things that I value about the wonderful co-hosts that we're able to secure to come and share with our community is that they have such rich credentials, accolades, experience, and I think that it is important for our community to understand how those individuals are showing up to the conversation. So one way I do that is by reading their official bio, and then I will give them a chance to introduce the audience in their own way. So today will be no different, and today I am introducing Intentional Conversations guest co-host Janet Stovall. Global Chief Diversity Officer, consultant, speaker, and author, Janet M. Stovall helps business do what she believes only business can: dismantle systemic inequity. She works with leaders to uncover the true value of diversity for their organizations and offers straightforward, objective solutions to unlock that value. Collectively, her 3 TED Talks challenging businesses to get serious about inclusion have nearly, catch this, 3 million views. That is with an M, 3 million views. And she is co-author of Amazon bestseller. My auntie's on, so pardon me, auntie. She's like my mommy. The Conscious Communicator, The Fine Art of Not Saying Stupid Shit. That's the name of her book. Reagan Communications named her a top woman in communications diversity champion, D&I leaders, a 2023 top inspirational leader, Diversity Plus magazine, a top 25 diversity change leader, and Atlanta Business Chronicle, an outstanding DEIB voice. In dual roles as global head of DEI at research and cognitive science firm Neuro Leadership Institute and founder of DEI consultancy Pragmatic Diversity, Janet specializes in shaping and implementing realistic DEI visions and strategies that drive change and build culture. A strategist and communicator, she helps leadership shape DEI vision, devise strategies to achieve them, and secure the collective buy-in and accountability needed to make them a reality. Janet holds a bachelor's degree in English from Davidson College, a master's degree in integrated marketing communications from Georgetown University, and postgraduate certificates in DEI from Cornell University and Yale University. Okay, so you know what to do now, podcast community. Find those reactions, those emojis, those words of affirmation. Let's let our guest co-host know how valued we are to have her here today sharing with us. And I am going to release you, Janet, momentarily to greet this audience in your own way. But I have to tell you that we have a tradition here. And that tradition is, as we are asking our guest co-host to greet the audience, we would love for you to share something with us that we would not know from hearing your bio, which we just did, right? Or from looking at your LinkedIn profile. And I know that's tough, but we want you to share with this community. So welcome, friend. I'm so glad we are finally having this opportunity and audience with each other. And I'm so grateful for your time today. So thank you. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Like I said, we have crossed each other's paths, and I'm glad we're finally together in one space. Something that you wouldn't know from looking at my LinkedIn. Okay, I'll say two things, and they're both weird. One is that my sweet potato bourbon cheesecake is a blue ribbon winner. It has won several awards. I love to cook. I'm a serious cook, and the sweet potato bourbon cheesecake is the one. It was in Parenting Magazine a few years ago. And I have an irrational fear of the Easter Bunny. There we go.
Now, I wasn't expecting that second one.
I know. You said you wanted to know.
How can I get an invite to taste this award-winning kind of dish? But
You have to come to Atlanta.
Easter Bunny. So that's around the corner.
Well, think about it. Think about it. I think as a child, I believed somehow that the Easter Bunny was 7 feet tall, and it is an animal whose teeth don't stop growing. The thought of that just terrifies me. So yeah, I don't. And if you ever see one of those mall Easter bunnies, they're terrifying. Santa Claus is fine, but the Easter Bunny, there's never been a good one. So I don't like them.
That is so funny. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Look, we all have our things. No judgment here. We all have our things, right? The
Right.
Easter Bunny is for some people, you know, a little scary. I get that. So I'm sure you're not alone. So speaking of LinkedIn, as I just kind of led into that question, I do want to remind you all that if you desire for this community to connect with you beyond this hour of time, then share your LinkedIn information into the chat. My team will share mine. I will gladly welcome a connection from any of you that are part of our community. So I want to jump right in. First and foremost, I always like to start with this question, especially now because it's so important. How are you doing? How are you doing?
Well, it's a rough time. It's a rough time. Good days, bad days. But I am still doing. I'm still doing this work. I still believe in this work. But this is a very different time, and I've been doing it for a long time, and I've never been in a moment quite like the one we're in. So like most of us, I'm figuring it out day by day, hour by hour, because you just never know. But I'm doing okay. I drink bourbon a lot. Bourbon helps.
And it finds its way into your sweet potato dish, right?
There you
Did I hear
go.
that top of the hour? Okay. So yeah, we're more and more intrigued by this dish. So you said something really important. You said, I am still doing. And I think that that is worth amplifying because so many of us are almost paralyzed in this moment of a reckoning of what's happening and we don't know what to do. And so I love when people at least have reconciled that I need to keep doing something. If that's connecting with community, if that's continuing to make impact in our spheres of influence, whatever it is, let's just continue to keep doing, because I think that in our doing, whether we realize it or not, we are still making impact because we are connecting with things that we deeply care about. And I don't want us to ever lose sight of that in this moment. So
No,
let's
and I
jump
mean,
right in.
no, we
Yeah, go
can't.
ahead.
We can't. No,
We
I said we
can't.
can't. Go ahead.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so I want to talk about your pathway, and I know that today we're going to be cut short by 5 minutes, but we're not going to feel that because we're going to pack everything in. But Janet does have a commitment right at the top of the hour, so I committed to making sure we can get her out of here. And so, podcast community, you're going to help me maintain that commitment, okay? But let's talk about what inspired you to focus on the work that you do, specifically dismantling systemic inequities through business. And why do you believe that businesses, particularly when we think about this current juncture and day and time, all that we're experiencing, are uniquely positioned to do this?
Well, because honestly, business is the only sector that's left. Back in 2018, when I did my TED Talk, I said business can dismantle racism. I was
Mhm.
dismissing government because of its lack of urgency, its lack of it's lots of bureaucracy and its lack of
Yes.
efficacy. And that was before the government declared war on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So as we can see with the companies, though, that are undergoing some FAFO, and I hope today makes it even more clear to them, money talks. So when that money says that DEI matters, companies, unlike the government, will do something about it. And for those who have and continue to stand 10 toes down on this work, it's a lesson they've learned. For the others that are walking away from it, I believe it's a lesson they're going to buy, taught lesson versus bought lesson. But I just don't think there's any other place where this work can get done. And it's the one place that has the ability and the incentive, the true incentive to do this work. And so we just have to recognize that it's not going to be easy. People thought it was easy in 2020 and they thought it was going to be done by now. It's ongoing. But I think people are going to figure out that they need to keep doing it.
100%, 100%. Well stated. And you referenced your TED Talk, and of course, you have multiple TED Talks. I think that was my first introduction to you. And I say that because we were actually connected. I'm not even sure if you remember this, by Erwin Carter, who is
Yes.
a family friend. And when he knew that I was in the space and I was launching, he was like, "You have to meet my friend. She is fabulous." And then he sent me your LinkedIn, and he also sent me one of your TED Talks. And I was like, "Ooh, I do have to meet her." And so, anyway, full circle moment. But yes, you use it is a lesson that is gonna have to be taught because it can't be bought. And I love all of that. And that's 100% accurate. So I want to get a deeper understanding. So let's go to talking about some examples to really help drive this point home. Can you share an example of how you've helped a company uncover true value of diversity and to implement objective solutions? I always love being able to for people to hear how we put this in practice and it actually manifests.
Absolutely. I was doing several years ago, I was brought in to talk to an African American BRG. They call themselves a BRG, and but they felt like we're not really as relevant, and we want to be more relevant in this organization. It was a major pharmaceutical company, and so I came in, and the first thing I said to them, on stage was, "Why are you here?" Kind of looked at me. I said, "Why do you think the company is paying for you to be here and have receptions and drinks and dinner?" I said, "Because they think you can provide value." So the question is, what is that value? And they didn't have a great answer at first. So we spent the next 4 hours and I took them through a model that I built. It's called an in-demand model. And basically it says if you are a BRG or an ERG or any diverse group and you want to have value in the company, this is the way to do it. So what we did was I sent them off into different groups. They were kind of different cohorts. There was a research and development group, there was a marketing group, and there was a governmental group that kind of affiliate between the government and their company. And what I said to them was this. I said, "Look, I don't know a lot about pharmaceuticals because I'm not in that business, but I do know this. I do know that this organization makes HIV drugs. And I do know because I studied before I got to do this session, I do know that the demographic that is most affected by HIV is heterosexual Black women. You're the Black
Mm.
BRG. So I don't know. I'm thinking maybe there's something we can do there." I said, "But let's figure that out." So I sent them off into groups and gave them a very structured process to assess, to come up with some ideas, to prioritize those ideas, to figure out what the resources were. And then I gave them a very structured way to present it because my background is comms. I'm one of those weird DEI people who didn't come out of HR. I came out of comms. And I said, because you have to be able to make this relevant to the company and explain it. So they came back and they had somebody who spoke for the group, and they went through the process and they presented these ideas. Well, little did we realize the CEO was in the audience. We didn't even know he was there. And he said, "These are great. We're going to do all of these." And they did all of them, and it has made millions of dollars for that company. So they were able to actually leverage their unique brand, their unique aspect of identity for the company's bottom line. Because at the end of the day, DEI, all of that, if it does not contribute to the bottom line, it will go away. And that's the challenge we've had right now. We have not made that connection over time.
Yes. I totally agree with you, Janet. I want to comment on a couple things because there was so much goodness in what you just shared. So first of all, I'm also one of those weird DEI folks because I came from Mark. I kind of
See?
chuckled inside when you said that. And actually, there's a lot of us that transitioned out of Marcom into this space, ironically. But, and let me say this quickly. I don't want to digress too much, but let me say this quickly. I think that's important because when I think about the skill sets that I bring to this work, right, as a community builder, as a connector, I use a lot of those skill sets around marketing communications. It's not just about helping people to understand the constructs in theory and in practice, but it's also about how are we telling the story, right? How are we
Exactly.
controlling the narrative? How are we helping to let resistance be at bay because we're providing the clarity of what it is? Misinformation right now is at all-time high around those three letters, DEI. Okay, I digress. Let me come back to. Now, I want to talk about this in-demand model because what you just described was a great value that came out of a group of individuals that were part of an organization that, when presented with questions about here's a value and here's an opportunity, now how can you deliver? It ended up resulting in millions and millions of dollars for the organization. So success, definitely that rings success. What
Hmm.
I also want to, though, take a moment to express as we are talking about this very explicit example is that there are many organizations that when they are forming their BRGs and their ERGs, they are not as focused on the importance of those BRGs and ERGs, really also aligning with the business imperative of the value that they can bring. And I am one of those practitioners, and I believe you are as well, based upon your example that you just shared, that it's a both and. We have to hold the middle. We have to make sure that these groups also exist, very importantly, to make sure those individuals can connect with others that are like them, that are navigating a very similar path to feel protected, to feel safe, to feel like they have, an opportunity to be able to grow and thrive through all of the programmatic efforts that come along with these ERGs and BRGs. But it can't just stop there. And
Hmm.
there are even some individuals that participate in ERGs and BRGs that are of the persuasion, I shouldn't have to deliver something to the business bottom line. You should be doing this only because of me.
Yeah,
And I
no,
get those individuals, but let me say it is a bold and we have to be strategic. We have to be strategic. And
we
so
do.
I don't want us to lose sight of one of the really important takeaways from what you just shared. It is a both and. We're there to establish community and safety and protections and opportunities and all of those things. But if you're not connecting to the bottom line,
No. And the thing is when we think about employee groups in general, I see them as operating on a continuum. First,
yeah,
there's the affinity group. I mean, I think the first one was in the 70s at Xerox. And it's because Black folks at Xerox looked around and went, wait, how many of us,
right.
are there? We need to get together. It's a lifeboat mentality. That's where it starts. Then if you're successful, it moves to being an ERG. And so I think, affinity groups are about identity. ERGs are about advocacy because then you are a group, you look at each other, you find your common things that you want to talk about, be about, you find community there. But then the next step is to become a BRG. And that's
Mhm.
when you actually provide value to the company. Every company who starts employee resource groups of any kind, that's what they want. What they don't understand is that that just doesn't happen organically. If you as an organization are not supporting your people on those first two levels, they will never get to that third level. If
Yeah,
they
so
don't
true.
find the identity, if they don't feel like they can advocate for themselves, they're not getting there. So I think the responsibility is on both sides in that one.
No, thank you for that. I think that's really rich, and that provides some additional context around the layering approach that sometimes happens as you sequence, where to start and then where to land.
Mhm.
Let's talk about your TED Talks and these, itty bitty 3 million people that have, watched them, right? Right. Okay. So, what do you think resonates most with your viewers about your message on workplace inclusion? What do you hear when you encounter people that are part of this 3 million? What do they say resonates most?
The line that comes up more than anything else is where I said in the main TED Talk, the main stage one, where it says companies can mandate diversity, but they have to cultivate inclusion. I've seen that quoted, I've seen that pulled out. Um, and when I said it, I didn't realize it was, groundbreaking. But I think it would resonate because we have an idea. We focused a lot on getting bodies in the building,
Yeah.
and diversity. And so when you say that just getting bodies in the building isn't enough, that's validation for some of those people who are those people, but it's a revelation for others. But for me, inclusion has always been the most important of those three words: diversity, inclusion, and equity. And I do say them in that order, despite the fact that the acronym for that would not be nearly as nice. Um, but I think many of us think about inclusion as
Yeah.
feelings. We started using the word belonging a lot. I don't, because to me, inclusion is behavior. And if you
Mm,
don't define it, you cannot expect people to do it, and you can't make them accountable if they don't. So, what do I mean by define it? I mean that there's no single universal definition for inclusion that works for every organization. I like continuums. So, I have one. I used to call it my Chick-fil-A to Ben and Jerry's continuum, but I've decided I've got a different perspective on Chick-fil-A. So now I call it my Brandy Melville to Ben and Jerry's continuum, because Brandy
okay.
Melville, they already did a Netflix version on it anyway, so they've already slammed them, so I can just join that. But if you think about what it means to what inclusion means at Brandy Melville, which is, a very, very defined customer base, one size fits all. And their
Mhm.
whole look is very, very exclusive. And then you take Ben and Jerry's, which has been the example that we always use in this space, but they're sort of on the front of the social justice movement.
Yeah.
Inclusion is going to mean something very different at those two organizations. So, how do you define it? I believe that the best way to define it is relative to what it allows people to do, what it allows people to contribute, especially from their unique lived experience. Same thing with that BRG that I talked about. Exclusion then becomes everything that gets in the way of people being able to do that, being able to leverage their diversity. So, what I say now, yeah, I've gone full circle back to your question about the TED Talk. What I say now is, and this resonates with people, is I say diversity is not a problem to solve. Diversity solves problems. Inclusion is not feeling valued. Inclusion is being able to deliver value. And equity is not fair people. Equity is fair systems. Maybe that's my next TED Talk.
I think it should be. I love how succinct that is. And I'm tracking with you. I think that that language really helps to bring some clarity to words that people have a lot of misunderstanding around.
Mhm.
And, so you mentioned your thoughts about how in which you engage with this word belonging as it relates to all the body of work. I've always believed that belonging is the outcome when you put the D, the E, and the I together, right? That's what you get. You get belonging. And then if people have this strong sense of feeling like they belong, then they're going to show up, bringing their A game, and they're going
Mhm.
to, because they're going to feel valued, right? They're going to feel
Mhm.
respected. They're going to feel like they are safe and they have full opportunity for success. Now, I also agree with the notion of organizations have to be really careful to make sure that they are level setting all of their employees around how in which they are defining collectively these words, particularly
Mhm.
inclusion, since you talked a good bit about that. And I think the assumption is that there's this universal definition that's going to apply seamlessly across the board. And it is
Mhm.
nuanced, because if I am an organization and I say that I value inclusion, then let's say I'm an organization and my mission is directly related to something that is, targeting and supporting Black women, right? Then that is my mission, that is my purpose. And there's nothing wrong with organizations that exist explicitly to support and to target the needs of specific marginalized groups. When you solve for the margins, you're uplifting all. And so I think that's a really astute point that you brought up, and I just wanted to amplify it. So we're
And
going to
and
play.
and when I go add to your point, the idea of belonging is one that I think it is allowed people. I love your point of the fact that that's the outcome, because I have pushed back on that term over time, because I think people use it. They take advantage of its ambiguity. And to me, when you say you want to create a space of belonging, the question to ask yourself: to whom does this space belong? So you're going to create a space of belonging as a company. You can't just do that, because if you say a space of belonging, you are deciding that there's some universal space to which everybody can belong. So then on the other side, you say we want people to have a sense of belonging. Well, if you tell people, I expect you to have a sense of belonging, what you're doing is you're saying to them, the onus of inclusion becomes on the person who's been excluded. The only way to actually create belonging, and that's why I love what you just said, is you have to focus on inclusive behaviors, because out
Yes,
of all those words, inclusion is the only one that's actionable by everybody,
yes,
no matter where you are.
yes.
So that's how you get
Yeah.
to belonging. And I always get nervous because people just throw it out there. I'm like, do you even know what that means? And I can feel like I belong one day and not feel like I belong another.
Oh,
And
that's so true. That's so true, Janet. I'm so glad you brought that up. But yes, it's all relative. It's almost like when people say, well, here are the best practices. Best for whom?
yes, yeah,
You know, that's
yeah,
why I've started using language like leading practices based upon my experience, that sort of thing. But yeah, for whom? And so if we can't answer that, then you're right. It's just kind of empty and it's hollow.
exactly.
But what I have appreciated about the, belonging finding its way into the vernacular of how we talk about this work. I do believe it is an outcome. I also believe that it is one of those constructs that is easy for anybody, regardless of your demographics or backgrounds, to try to attach themselves to, which can help when we are trying to get as many people as possible to own this
Exactly.
work, to see it as something that we all gain value from, not just certain populations of marginalized communities, right? And I think that that has really resonated with a lot of organizations, right? We want everyone to see that when we're committing to this work and we're doing this work, it is because the rising tide lifts all boats. It's not just, to leave anyone out. And we all can identify with wanting to feel safe, with wanting to,
Exactly.
have our voice heard and to not have, repercussions because maybe we go against, the we don't conform to the norm. And so I love this discussion. It's definitely providing some value for us. I want to ask my team to please drop into the chat, into the comment section for LinkedIn, a link to your TED Talk. And let's maybe do the link so that we'll make sure we provide all of them, but I want to do the link explicitly to the one that you just referenced.
Mhm.
About the language that you saw really resonated with so many people. So if you could give a cue for which one that is by the title, my team will be able to place that.
That's the one that says, I'm trying to remember what they called it. I called it the power of single-mindedness, but I believe the way Ted put it was it's time for companies to get serious about inclusion. But
Okay,
it's the
okay.
main one. It's the one that you see in this picture
The
behind me.
main stage. So yeah, let me go back to that because you were very clear and I caught it. And listen, I am not mad and I'm glad you did. You said the TED stage, the main one, the big stage. We
Big
all
thing.
know that all TED Talks are not created equal. So I do want to acknowledge that our sister here has been on the main stage. Okay, the main stage, the main one. Okay, let's talk about your book now. So the conscious communicator. I'll just say the short form of it. I don't know if you all caught the beginning, but for those of you who joined late, I had to read the full title of the book as I was giving the intro. And I said, okay, my auntie's on here, and my auntie is like my second mom. And I don't say potty words in front of I don't say potty words at all, but definitely not in front of mom and my second mom. But anyway, so I'm going to call it the conscious communicator. So in your book, we will drop a link to your book into the chat, into the comment section for those who are watching on LinkedIn Live. But without giving the full book away, give us some key strategies that you outlined for deciding whether or not to communicate publicly about DEI or social justice issues, because I think that is such an important question right now for so many people who are like, do I go silent? Because there's a risk. I don't want to be targeted. Do I leverage my voice? What are your thoughts
Yeah.
about that? And maybe how has your thoughts on that evolved since writing the book to what's happening right now?
Well, I actually wish that we just released our second edition of it, and there are three new chapters in there. And
Great.
I actually wish we waited a little bit longer because I think there could be another chapter that was more on this. But I think everything in there I think was valuable. Let me tell you a little bit about how we got to that name and how it started. My co-author on this, Kim Clark, is a DEI communicator, and we met through a Reagan conference that we were both at. And she said that when she wanted to meet me because when she heard my TED Talk and I said business can dismantle racism, she stopped. She had to pull over. So see, that's another one of those that stops people. And she says, you're right. And then right about that time in 2020, all the, Black Lives Matter, everybody was putting those black squares up. And
Right.
she's a very, emotional person when she starts thinking about something. And she just says, this just drives me crazy. I mean, people are saying this, they're not sticking to it. I mean, what can we do? I said, tell people to stop saying stupid shit. Basically, that's what I said. Just tell them to stop. How do you stop people from doing it? And so the book kind of came out of that. And, I give her full credit for the fact that that book would not have gotten written if she had not been determined that we were going to do it. Because I just wasn't focused enough, but she did it. We got it done. What we realized and what I've realized is, like I said, my background's comms. Before I moved into the space I am now, I was a speechwriter for the CEO at UPS. And there are very few Black people who are speechwriters in the Fortune 100 at the C level. In fact, for a time, I may have been the only one.
Mhm.
That's changed, and so the thing is, understanding how to communicate is critical. I
Right.
am, I could have said this too in the beginning. I am a great builder of models because as a communicator and as an analytical person, when I'm trying to make sense of something, I want to build a model for it. So I
You're
built this,
a thinker,
yeah, I'm a
systems
model maker.
thinkers. Like it. Okay.
Exactly. And so I built this depth model, and that is the basis of the book. And what it says is that if you're trying to decide whether or not you as an organization, as a leader, even as a person, so whether or not you're going to go public and say something, you should ask yourself the five things, and that's the acronym of the model. Is it deliberate? Is it educated? Is it purposeful? Is it tailored? And is it habitual? Do you have a good reason for saying it? Do you know everything you need to know about it? Does it align with your values? Does it align with your unique abilities, your core competencies? And are you going to say it again? Have you ever said it before? You're going to say it again. And what the book allows you to do is to take yourself, ask those questions, and give yourself a rating from 1 to 10, and you average it. And if you end up in a 5, then you need to rethink, you need to think about it. If you're anything lower than a 5 on that, you need to sit that one out. Just step away from it because you're not, it's not going to end well for you. If you're at a 5, you can ask yourself, how could I move my ability up or down in either one of these categories so that I might get to the 6 to 10 version of this? And if I'm in the 6 to 10 range, according to this scale, then yeah, I am prepared to step out on this and do it the right way and probably not get in trouble for doing it. And that just came from the fact that I've been in that role as a speechwriter at the level I was. You spend a lot of time getting people to make sure that they don't say stupid stuff. And it requires you to sometimes argue when they really believe what they're going to say. And, you just kind of go, all right, look, let me explain to you why you shouldn't say this or why we should say this. And so over time, I was able to kind of, collapse it into a model. And that's what the book is about. And so the second edition is now out. And it's got 3 new chapters in it. And one of them is about communicating through difficult times, but it's more about crisis. I would say
Yes.
this is a bit of a crisis that we're in, so it probably holds.
Or yes, this definitely classifies as a crisis times 1,000. Times
Exactly.
infinity. Yes, absolutely. So timely, so timely. So yes, I want everybody to make sure that they're writing down the name of the book, The Conscious Communicator, The Fine Art of Not Saying Stupid Stuff.
Stuff. There you
And
go. Stuff works.
they are 3 new chapters, and I would say that probably this content is more relevant now than ever before because I'm sure, like you, we have been as practitioners helping to navigate clients through how do we show up in this moment? What do we say? What do we not say? How do we stay out of it? Thank you, Toki. She's placing into the chat for all of us what that the acronym stood for: deliberate, educated, purposeful, tailored, and habitual. Thank you so much for that. I love it. You're making me want to. I am actually going to get your book because I want the
Thank
new
you.
3 chapters, and I want to be able to. I need something as a test to kind of because I'm always like, do I say this? Do I not? And I would imagine that right now, so many of us as practitioners, especially those of us who have like voices of authority in this space, we're being called upon to make statements and to appear in this particular article or on this broadcast. And I will
Mhm.
tell you right now, and I shared this on a previous podcast maybe a couple of weeks ago. Right now I am having to think very, very hard about my yeses for
Yeah.
those. And I have said some no's. And it's because of the safety factor.
Yeah.
I don't
I
think
mean,
that we have
literally, literal and figuratively.
yes,
Literally.
yes.
Yes.
And I'm not talking
Absolutely.
about safety for my business because, yes, people are going to target you regardless. But I am talking about physical safety of myself, my family, my daughter who works in the business with me, who is, like I said once before, she's kind of sister soldier in and of herself. And yeah, if someone comes for her mama, I don't know if she's going to be able to peacefully kind of just,
Yeah, I mean,
but
it is
anyway,
that's why I'm saying this is a different moment. This
Yes.
is the moment. I was born in 1963, so I am just over the boomer line. So, and I can say that I don't remember much of the civil rights movement. I remember standing outside of our apartment when I was five, whatever, and watching what I lived in DC, watching them burn down my favorite toy store. So that's my first remember that. That was the riots
Yeah.
after Dr. King was murdered. So I mean, I remember those things, but of course, I had no context for it. However, I am old enough and close enough to relatives and friends who do to hear them say, I thought we were done with this foolishness. I thought it was okay. And they said, they actually feared for their lives, literally. And now we're looking at that the same way. And that's why I mean this is different. This is just not the usual pushback because the pushback is going to come. I do not
Right.
believe that, we all a lot of times we say DEI and that work is cyclical. I don't believe that. I believe that our work is always it's always a regression to the mean. The mean is always inequity. And so what happens is sometimes we go up like we did in the civil rights movement, and then you
Right.
immediately come back down. Well, it's like slavery. You went up, they ended slavery, whoop,
Yeah.
Reconstruction. We go back up in the civil rights movement, whoop, we get to the 70s and the 80s with Reaganomics and the war on drugs and all that. So 2020, for all the wrong reasons, we went way up. And so we should expect that now we're going to come way down. But
Yeah.
the mean is always inequity. And what gives me hope is that we are still moving along a continuum. And this
Yeah.
just feels like we're going backwards. It really does.
Yeah, no, it does. It does, Janet. Thank you so much. And you're right. 2020, all the wrong reasons did we go up, and we are
Mhm.
paying the price for it now in tremendous ways. Yeah, I'm with you. I hear of some other practitioners that say we've been here before. Have we been challenged before in this work? Absolutely. But have we been here?
Yeah, no, not in our lifetime, not in our lifetime.
Soon, but I'm just still saying. So I haven't been around, to really understand all the ebbs and flows, but this does definitely feel very, very different. Very, very
Mhm,
different. So
mhm.
okay, so we are getting close to the time to where we're going to have to wind down. And as I mentioned at the start of the hour, Miss Janet has another appointment right at the top of the hour. So we're going to be ending 5 minutes early today. But I do not want to deny any of you an opportunity to engage with our guest co host. So if you have some questions or curiosities that are bubbling up for you and you want to share your commentary or your questions directly, you can do so if you're part of the Zoom community by using the raise hand feature that lets me know that I can invite you to unmute yourself. And if your camera is on, I will even add you to the spotlight. Or you can just go to the chat and place your questions or comments there. The same for all of you who are joining us live on LinkedIn. Place your questions into the comment section and we'll get to as many as we can in the limited time that we have remaining. While you all are percolating on perhaps what you want to contribute to today's dialogue, I'm going to go to the next question. And this is really about what we just talked about, but I want to go a little bit deeper into it. How has your so many years of understanding DEI evolved throughout your career, Janet? And what have been some pivotal moments in shaping your perspective?
Well, I'll start with what I think in retrospect got me into this work. And it started with two quotes that I had even just as far back as college. I was a junior and a sophomore, I think, a sophomore, and we invited a gentleman to come speak, Dr. Charles King. He's no longer with us. And he did a racism workshop. And I got to drive him back to the airport. So, of course, I'm driving back to the airport and I'm, complaining about, I went to Davidson College. I'm complaining about Davidson and how backwards it is. He looked at me, he said, "You are the angriest little black woman I have ever met in my life." He goes, "Why don't you stop getting mad and start getting meaningful?" And that stuck with me. And what it has done, fast forward, is everything I've done in my life now is I follow what pisses me off. I don't follow what makes me happy because if I'm happy, I'm not going to bother it. But if I'm mad, I'm on it. And so that's how I've kind of moved into the space. The other comment that sort of put me on this path came my senior year when the late Nikki Giovanni came to Davidson, and I was driving her back to the airport. She's chain smoking out of the window, and I'm complaining about Davidson again. And she looked at me and she goes, "Well, they didn't like you came here for the Black experience, now is it?" I had to sit back and go, okay. So what from that point
Fair.
forward, fair, right? From that point forward, what I realized was that place was not built for me. And maybe they cared about changing, maybe they didn't. Either way, I would have to define what that change looked like. And so that's where Project 87 that I talk about in my TED Talk came from. It was like defining that. And so going forward into this work, those are the things that have kind of help me get to this work. What keeps me in this work is the subject of the next book that I'm working on, if I can sit myself down and write it. And it is about understanding who I uniquely am in this work,
Yeah.
understanding where I am at any given time doing this work, and then identifying the specific, unique barriers to inclusion in whatever space that's in. So once again, there are models in the book. There are three of them in this one. And over time, I've identified five archetypes of people who do this work. I am a,
Hmm.
I am a disaggregationist. And since I won't give away too much of this because I got a lot of work to do on it, but I'm a disaggregationist. I
So
believe in
intrigued.
moving, I believe in
Yeah.
moving the big rock first. I
Yeah.
focus on who is most harmed. And so a lot of people think when I talk about, Black women, it's because I'm a
Yeah.
Black woman. I am, sure. But I focus on that because the data shows us that Black women are affected more than anybody else in the workplace. We have the
100%.
lowest numbers. We saw what happened in the election, in case we were confused. So I'm a disaggregationist. Now, I work in different types of companies. I believe there are four different environments. And, I won't say the one I'm in right now, but the environments are different. So if I'm a disaggregationist and I'm in one environment, I'm going to work a certain way. If I'm a disaggregationist and I'm in another environment, I'm going to operate another way. And at the end of the day, I'm trying to change something. And I have to understand what the unique challenges are in that space because they're going to be different. Like I said,
Of
inclusion is different
course.
everywhere else. So the second book, which is really me working through my own stuff and coming to and doing this, is how do you take who you are, understanding where you are to do what it is you want to do? And how do you make all those things work together? And if you're on a team of people, how do you get those different personalities to work together? Because you might have one who's one archetype who's another. How do they work together? At the end of the day, it's all about getting it done. And I will say the name of this book so you don't have to. But the name but the name of the second one is Now What? Now What? Doing DEI when nobody else gives a damn. That's
We're
it.
seeing a pattern here. No, I love the concept of this book. And so, listen, you've put it out into the atmosphere now. And so, this community right here, and I
Yes.
want y'all to put some thumbs up into the chat. We're going to hold Janet accountable for
Please
delivering this
do.
book because
Please
we want
do.
it. We want it. I
Please
so
do.
love the idea of these archetypes types so that people can fully understand how they best show up to this work. Because here's what I have heard a lot of chatter around, and it frustrates me. It's almost as though there is one singular way to do this work, and everyone else who's not following that one singular way needs to just be canceled or something. And I
Exactly.
believe that we need all of the different types of people that show up to this work with whatever superpowers and approaches that they have, as long as they aren't harming folks, right?
Mhm.
Because people are driven and motivated by different things, different styles, different approaches. So we need all of us working our
Mhm.
superpowers to bring as many people along as possible. And I like you, as a Black woman who is a practitioner in this space, I mean, while I have huge appreciation for all the dimensions of diversity, then yes, a lot of the work that I do also centers very much on the Black woman's experience. I mean, if you look at just the historic history of the 5 years, the majority of our guest co-hosts have been Black women.
Mhm.
And that is intentional. And so, there have been a couple times where that has come up, and I respond the way that I always respond. I'm a Black woman. I am
Mhm.
connected to those issues. Um, and so anyway, I love that this is going to be a tool, and I'm speaking it into existence because we
Thank
need
you.
to understand all of that. Okay, so let me look to make sure. I'm looking at the chat now to be able to see if there's. I don't see any hands raised. Let me see if there's any questions in here. This is a good comment, so I hope that you are going to be able to go back and revisit
I will.
the chat. Yes. And so Andrea says, "I love the book titles. How do you come up with these?"
Because I'm
Well,
always following what pisses me off, right? And so when you're pissed off, that's what happens.
Okay, so there you have it. There you have it. Okay, great. So I was making sure I didn't have any other questions. Okay, so I want to keep going because we're soon going to be running. Okay, so I want to talk about how you address resistance or skepticism from leaders when implementing DEI strategies, because that is a big question right now for so many, because we've never seen the resistance as high as we do right now, and people are feeling emboldened because of what's happening in the political realm.
Well, the good thing is there are leaders who do still believe in this work, who have believed in it from the
100%.
beginning. Yeah, and they're still doing that work. I see it in my work at NLI, the Neuro Leadership Institute. I see it in my private practice. There are people who still do it. So they're not the ones you have to talk to. You do have to do that because even if they're not skeptical, they have other people who are. And
Yeah.
I go back to people need to see themselves in this work. Most people who are not from a traditionally underrepresented group think diversity and inclusion, that's for you people over there. And the truth
Yeah.
is, there's no such thing as saying diverse person is a redundancy. Everybody has some aspect, seen or unseen, of diversity.
Absolutely.
So how do you get people to understand that this is not about somebody else? It's about you too. So I think that this is where, to your point about being a communicator, is incredibly important. It is helping people understand how it should matter to them. And there are going to be those people who are truly resistant who don't care. Well, you know what? They need to go do something else. And so I think that as an organizational tool, the way I talk to leaders is either I say focus on your business outcomes and make the connection literally between what you're doing and diversity and how it helps, or look at your value statement. Because if you ask yourself, if we take this away, if we stop doing this, how does this allow us to live up to the values we have? And if the answer is you can live up to the values, then, well, I'm on that continuum. You might be on the Brandy Melville side of that. I don't know. Or you need to change your value statements if you really want to do it. So I tell leaders, don't, I want you to, as a speechwriter, when I've had to do this for people who don't look anything like me, usually I spend a lot of time getting them to find what their story is and what their lived experience of this work is. And sometimes that can take years to get them to understand it and to get them to say it. But they find themselves in it, and that's the personal side of it. But then in order to actually make it happen, you have to tie it to something that everybody is accountable for, whether they want to be accountable or not. You want them to do it for the right reasons, but you don't care why they do it. I don't care why you do it. I don't care about changing belief. I don't care about changing hearts and minds. I care about changing behavior. And if you can tie it into something that everybody who gets a paycheck from that place has to care about, either the values or the outcomes, then you have a very solid and defensible and objective way to A, measure, make people accountable, but to make people do it. And so I always tell them, let's anchor this on something that everybody has to agree with.
Yeah, I totally agree. Something you said a moment ago deeply resonates with me, and I share this all the time. I think that many of us as practitioners, because we care so deeply about this work, I do want to acknowledge, one of the primary reasons we do want to change hearts and minds, right? And that's lovely, and I do too. But at the end of the day, I don't want us to miss that if we can change someone's behavior, that is a win
Exactly.
too. That is a win as well, right? So
And their
let's not
heart and their mind may change eventually. The
miss
heart and
it.
mind
They
will never
will.
change as long as the behavior doesn't change. So yeah,
Exactly, exactly, exactly. So I love that. And like you, I do believe that part of getting organizations to not be so resistant is to make sure that you're starting with the foundation of the value sets of DEI being incorporated into the value statement, the core values of the organization, because without that, then it's like, why are you existing
why are
then?
you doing this?
It's hard
Exactly.
for leaders to refute to not do efforts that are showing commitment to DEI when it's built into your value statements. It's like how can you refuse to not do it?
Exactly.
There's a huge disconnect there. So I do believe that that is a huge opportunity in helping those organizations who are not feeling as confident in maintaining the impactful work maybe that they've started in consideration of all that's happening. Okay, so we're going to get you out of here, Janet. I want to give you these final moments to share with us anything that maybe you are have a lot of energy for right now, maybe something I haven't asked you about today, that you want to socialize with this community. I want you to close this out in whatever way that feels appropriate. So share with us what's on the horizon for you and what else you would love to leave and impart to this community.
I want to say that we have to keep doing this work and that as hard as it is, and we have to give each other grace and we have to create safe spaces for each other because this work is hard, but it has never been easy. We live in an inequitable world. And in an inequitable world, equity itself is disruption. So we are disruptive people doing disruptive work. It's never going to be easy. And we have to keep doing it though, because if we don't, we see where the world would like to be. If we're not okay with that, then we have to help it not be there.
Yeah, absolutely. So be an inequity disruptor. Thank you so very much, Janet. So
Thank
appreciate you being
you.
here. Such a rich conversation. We want to have you back in the future. I want to thank this community for showing up. If you have heard something today that really resonated with you and you think this would gain value to be spread and shared with others, and feel free to make sure that you catch the podcast, you catch the replay, you share it out with those in your network, and join us next week for another episode of Intentional Conversations Podcast. Be healthy, be safe over the weekend, and we'll see you back next week. Thanks so very
Thank
much.
you. Bye-bye.